Hey everybody, as Stacey said, I'm Caitlin. Tonight we're going to be meeting with Michelle Abbey, who is the president and CEO of her company Radancy. Rainbow, the whole goal of it is to empower young women to be the leaders of tomorrow. So that's outside of Rainbow. It's not personal lives, professional, church, school, everything. And so we are so excited to hear from successful women in executive positions such as Miss Michelle. And we wanted to learn from her about her journey and ways our girls can use this insight as they develop their leadership skills. So yeah, Michelle, do you just want to introduce yourself a little bit?
So my name is Michelle Abbey. I'm CEO of Radancy, which formerly known as TMP Worldwide. We rebranded the company a week ago. So we've been TMP for 30 years, and I have to get used to the new name. But been with the company my entire career. I started, entry level position and work my way up through the organization. So very happy and excited to be here, and hopefully I can add some insights to the group.
Awesome, thank you. So I guess I'm just gonna start off with asking about like the very beginnings, like college, like what your major was. Did you always intend to end up in like the field that you're in right now?
Uh, so no, but I went to school upstate New York, Brockport, New York. I think the weather is similar to New Hampshire, cold and snowy, right outside of Rochester. And I was a health education major. I had visions of going into nonprofit, and I graduated and then went to business school at night. And a friend of mine was working for TMP at the time and said, maybe you should try working. Let's get a job, and referred me into the company. And I started as an account executive, entry level, and worked my way up over 30 years, which I cannot believe I can say 30 years. Quite a few of you, Caitlin, you're like 30. That's such a long time. I haven't even been around that long, but worked hard and worked my way up. So I didn't originally have a plan. I wasn't 100% sure at, 18, 19, what I wanted to do, but I found my path and worked hard and achieved a lot.
Can you tell us a bit about like the steps that you took like as you in the company? Because I know your company started in like a very different direction than it is now. So like as you go in the company also grew as well, right?
Yes, and the company changed. Originally, it was a company focused on yellow pages, which, back then was Google today. So company grew through acquisition, and one of the acquisitions was the Monster Board. I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with Monster.com. It was a career site, and our company then morphed into a digital company. And I worked on how to digitize our offering, and it grew through the years. And then company spun off, and I became CEO of a spinoff of the organization, and we really started our business from scratch in 2006. So a lot of growth, a
Fun.
lot of change.
Love that. As obviously like this is a very male-dominated field that you're in. And seeing you as a CEO is really, really cool because we obviously don't see that very often as young girls. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience like as a woman, like growing into that position?
Yeah, it wasn't easy, particularly in the organization I worked in. I was one of maybe three female executives in the company my entire career. I worked my way up to be the only division president that company actually ever had. So it was tough, but I learned to speak my mind and not focus on blending in with others, but to be myself and make sure I ask what I want and don't apologize, because I think women sometimes will ask for something and then say, "Oh no, I'm sorry, I really didn't want to be that pushy." But I grew into myself and learned to be a little more aggressive and stand up and more self confident. But it was difficult, being the only female in the room for many years. I have stories, but I'm being
Oh,
recorded,
thank you.
so I'm not telling any of them. But it was tough. It was not easy. I think today though, it's much different. I'd say the changes I've seen over the last 4 years, working still in, a male dominated industry, I've definitely seen some positive change.
That's awesome. Um, with that change, at least in your company, like as since you are like the chief executive officer, what have you done as that in that position to help perpetuate that change?
So, in terms of two different changes within the company, one, obviously culturally to make it more diverse and inclusive, and that is about hiring and promoting from within and bringing new talent in from the outside. So I've made a very strategic effort to bring in and promote women, people of color. So, that is part of our corporate culture and we focus on that. And, the company, in terms of the offering and what we bring to the table, we've acquired companies all around the world to help us grow. And it's changed our business in terms of geographic reach for customers as well as what we deliver for customers.
That's awesome. Um, could you talk about like the best and worst part of being in your position? Like, what's your favorite part, and what's like the most challenging thing that you have to deal with?
Best part is watching and helping people grow within the organization. You know, having someone on board in an entry level position and mentoring them and helping them grow through the company, and then watching the company grow and evolve and really change an industry. And it's very rewarding. It's hard work. You make mistakes along the way, you fix them, and you continue to grow. And that's really the best part. The hardest part, I would say, is when you have team members that aren't changing with the business and aren't growing with the business, and you have to make difficult decisions in terms of people's path. Sometimes the decisions are difficult and you don't want to make that decision, but you have to. And I think when you're faced with a situation that's challenging, the best thing to do is approach it openly and honestly and make that decision. It's not always a fun decision and it's not always the best part of the job, but you have to be able to make those difficult decisions. And again, be open about them, be honest, and do it, even if it's a little painful.
I totally. Um,
Or maybe not, but
no. So with like those like tough decisions, obviously like you've learned a lot of lessons. You've been with the company for 30 years. What do you think like the best lesson that you've learned like through a mistake or like a tough experience has been?
It's about planning and making sure that whatever you're doing, you have a plan and in a position of leadership, you can't fly by the seat of your pants and try it out and see if it works. When I received my first promotion, I was promoted to president of a division of a public company, and it was probably the bravest thing I ever did. I asked for the job. I walked into my boss's office and said, so and so has that job today. I believe I can do a much better job. And I laid out my case. He listened. 2 days later, I received a call from the CEO of the company. We discussed it, and he said, the job's yours. And I was so proud of myself. I was so excited. It was like, great decision. And then I moved into the job, and I didn't have a 30, 60, 90-day plan. I knew in my gut and my heart what was broken and what had to change. And I started making very quick decisions. Some of them were good, some of them were not good, but I didn't have a plan. So, lesson learned, when you walk into any situation, any business situation, and you want to affect change, you map out your plan. You know, what are your objectives, strategies, tactics, what's the action plan? And you map it out and you then execute it and adjust it along the way. I made that mistake once, a little painful, got out of it, all worked out well in the end, but I have never walked into a situation, made a decision, made an acquisition without a 30, 60, 90-day plan.
Just for some of our younger girls, do you mind elaborating like what you mean by the 30, 60, 90-day plan when you're like in a management position?
So if you are, I'll give you an example. If you are reorganizing a company and you are looking at changing people's roles or responsibilities, changing your pricing structure, changing your go-to-market strategy. So, you know, I guess a good example would be my name change for the company. You know, we mapped out what we needed to do to change the name, what research we needed to do. And then when we got the name change done, we had a rollout plan. So my rollout plan is, what am I going to do in the first 30 days? What are my measurements for success? How do I adapt those measurements for success, which will then affect what my plan was for the next 60 and 90 days.
Thank you. Kind of answered my next question, so I'm going to move on from there. What do you think the most important attributes are to successful leaders today?
Transparency, honesty, directness. You know, you have to have a vision, but that vision has to have a plan and it has to be baked in fact and research. But without a doubt, transparency, honesty with a good vision and plan.
Do you think this has changed at all or like evolved in response to COVID-19?
I think COVID has changed everything about the workforce and the workplace and how you manage people. I mean, if you would have asked me a year ago if I would be working from home doing Zoom meetings with a global employee base and welcoming them into my home, I would say no. What world are you living in? But you know, COVID has, at least for my organization, we went remote in a day. Every employee picked up their laptop, went home, and for those that didn't have computers in the office, we shipped everything out, and we went remote. And as a leader, how one communicates with a global workforce and how one manages a global workforce that is dealing with Wi-Fi issues, single working mothers without daycare, with kids that are homeschooled, people that are dealing with illness in the family, fear. We have a lot of employees that work out of a small apartment in New York City and go a little stir crazy. So how one manages the workforce has changed and how one leads has changed. It is about communication, it is about the methods of communication, and it is about consistency. You know, I think, you know, I have changed as a leader because of COVID, and I over communicate, find different ways to communicate, find different ways to get the employee base engaged. And what I did 3 months ago and 6 months ago, I don't do today. I change and will continue to do so. As you know, the work environment is different. You know, our employee base, I had said earlier before the call started, we did a survey of our employees in New York City and said, who would like to work in the office post-COVID? 22 out of 150, 160 people said, I don't want to work full-time in an office. So COVID has taught us to be flexible and to figure out different ways of working. So, you know, it's been tough, but there's been some positive outcomes in terms of connecting with the employee base.
We've definitely seen that in Rainbow, just from like a gathering perspective. We used to meet in person like twice a month at our local chapters, and obviously now we can't do that. And so like trying to just get things done has been a bit more challenging. So how do you effectively communicate over, like you said, you over communicate, but like through a multi-generational group of employees? Because I imagine that's very similar to us having like multi-generational participants in our organization.
Yeah, and it's also for us, it's multilingual and different time zones. So we've got teams in Singapore and India, team in France, English not so great, Germany, the Netherlands. So we put together a plan and I informally communicate every other week. I have a content schedule that I disrupt every week with a different idea or something else to communicate. I no longer send out templated corporate communications. I will either do an email blast, a story. Uh, I do quarterly meetings with every single department and country around the world. I do 30 a quarter and I get on a Zoom and I just say hello to people. I don't have an agenda. Just want to check in and see how everyone's doing, give them a casual update on what's going on with the company. I've gotten used to people commenting on my surroundings or what's that piece of art on the wall, but it is about more personal interaction. And I think it has built a lot of, employee loyalty and we also do surveys and very quick ones. How can we help? How's your tech infrastructure at home? When people were dealing with kids at, being homeschooled, what do you need? Do you need an extra computer? We had a computer program to send things to people's homes. So flexibility, different communication, and it's constantly changing.
Awesome. That was actually really helpful. We've started doing a couple of things, at least in New Hampshire. Like when the pandemic first hit, we would do weekly grand officer group chats, and so all the state officers and the younger girls would get on a call and we'd play little games and whatnot. And so we started doing something very similar, and then as the continued to like wear on, it kind of fell off.
But you have to keep it up consistently. We probably for the first 6 months of COVID, every other week did something called a live cast, where one of our employees who thinks he's a game show host would host it, and he'd collect pictures of people around the world and show people's dogs one week and backyards another week. And then we would have a 20-minute session of training and presentation so people could learn something new. And everyone was on Zoom and we did it every other week. And we stopped in September because October, November, December is our busy season, and we're picking it up again next week. So we never did it before. We're doing it for COVID, and it's become a new best practice.
Awesome. I'm just getting a couple more questions in from the people who are watching. So, um, we've kind of talked about this. We talked about this actually earlier on the phone this morning. You mentioned that you are kind of like starting up a woman in leadership project at your company. Could you talk a little bit more on that?
Yeah, I think one of the strategic initiatives in our business plan for 2020 was, a women in leadership committee and project. So we had 3 initiatives for the year. We looked at pay. So actually did a data analysis of all our female employees and where they are in the organization in terms of seniority, and made sure we had equitable pay. We didn't have 100% equitable pay, but we made adjustments. We started a mentorship program for future leaders. So my executive team, we have a dozen people. We all were paired with either 1 or 2 future leaders of the company. And we had still have a formal program where the women decide the areas where they want to grow their career. And as a mentor, we meet with them every other month to check their status and give them advice. We also, the third big initiative was and is a panel, which has been the most successful. We have It's a facilitated panel by one of our leaders, and it is on different subjects. Last one, well, I wasn't allowed to attend because they thought I would stifle the conversation. I'm crashing the next one, but it was a panel of 6 women from around the country, and it was about what are your experiences as women in the workplace, and what do you deal with, what help you need. We had 350 women on the panel, on the call, and got rave reviews. So we're doing that quarterly. So it all is all about the challenges and opportunity that women face in the workforce, and how collectively we could work together to help.
Awesome. A little bit earlier, we were talking about the importance of planning and how like you can't just fly by the seat of your pants. And while like that's definitely true, especially for leadership positions, we teach in Rainbow that it's true everywhere. Like you always have to have a plan, regardless of what you're doing. And so we have all of the younger girls do project planners just to kind of like get things done. So in one position, when you do that, you do a membership project, and then another, you do a charity project where you host something and you raise funds for whatever charity that we're raising money for that term. What do you think many people miss when bowling out new projects? Like, what's a step that you think people need to like really hone in on?
Oh, I was thinking, what do you miss? And I was going back to COVID.
You can
I
answer that too.
Yeah, well, they miss sitting in a room with a colleague and brainstorming the idea. But I think people don't plan for the unexpected, and, or build in time for something going wrong. You build a plan, and, A, B, C, D. So sometimes D has to come before C because of you plan it out, and you have to be able to make those adjustments. And then you have to build in time for the unknown. Something happens, you're planning a charitable event and it's an outdoor event and it rains. What are you going to do? And I think doing the planning and thinking about what could happen and building in some time for adjustments is something, people continually miss.
Absolutely. Um, with the pandemic, lots of organizations have stagnated due to everyone being home. And we were talking a little bit about that, how you've kind of kept up morale and like built on your efficiency. But how do you keep like the momentum of the business going when everything else is kind of like crashing around you in the outside world?
Not It definitely has not been easy. I think we are blessed that we have a great employee base that's very dedicated to the company and each other. And when you have good collaboration, things could be terrible around you, but you're doing what you're doing because of your coworkers and the care you have for company. So I think the company culture that you create is one that gets you through some tough times. The open and honest communication. In the beginning of the pandemic, we did a furlough of probably 150 people around the world, and we did it a week into it, and we communicated it. I got on one of my calls with the 30 different offices, explained what was happening with the company, why we did what we did, and no one has to be concerned from this point on. Let's go to work. And the openness, the transparency, the sharing, the successes. And I think the biggest thing I hear through COVID is people don't have, there aren't any weddings and parties and sporting events, and you're not talking to your friends about the big concert you went to over the weekend. So there's not a lot of joy sharing. So you have to make sure as a leader to share those good stories, because, in the outside world, there's not as much, you don't hear as much joy as you used to. So sharing the good, being open and honest, making sure everyone's aware of others' successes gets you through it.
Awesome. Um, this is a good one. Do you have any morning rituals that help you get started on your busy days?
Oh, sure. 2 espressos every morning. I get up, I go to my Nespresso machine. It's the best invention. It takes about 20 seconds, big chug of espresso. I wait 10 minutes. I have a second one. I'm good, fueled up for the day. So I check my email usually at 5 in the morning with my espresso and, clean that up and then get to work. Having to work with Europe,
Love that.
I tend to get up pretty early, but my espresso, I went to visit my family during COVID. I took my espresso machine with me.
Have you tried blonde espresso?
Blonde?
Yes. It's like a different kind of bean, and so it has a little bit more caffeine in it. I highly recommend.
I will try it.
I work in a coffee shop, so I just all I do is coffee all the time.
And it's
Okay, what do you do?
my only vice.
Hmm?
It's my only vice, my caffeine.
What do you do in your free time when you're not working?
Well, lately, there hasn't been a lot, but one of the pluses of my job is I get to travel the world. And I love to travel and I love art. So I go to different art museums around the world. I don't know if you know Vermeer, it's a Dutch artist. He painted 36 or maybe 50 paintings, but only 35 or 36 of them are out. So one of my little hobbies is I decided to go visit every single one of them around the world. So, traveling and art, definitely a hobby. I'm a bit of a shopaholic. Do love to shop. Museums and stores are my distractions.
Have you taken to online shopping during COVID?
Yeah, I went through that for about 3 months. It's like every morning, okay, let's do that. And then it got boring. So, you know, try to try to change it up a little bit.
Perfect. We have another question. For the mentorship program, what values do you see in it? And have you any suggestions for other groups starting one up? So
Yeah,
like if we would like take that idea, like what would your recommendation be?
definitely have structure to it, in terms of deliverables, because I mentor two young ladies in the organization, two women who are incredible, and I'm not staying to the structure too much. We like having good discussions, sharing experiences, but some structure to the program. What do you want to accomplish? Is really the key, and making sure that what the mentee wants to accomplish is attainable. So my sessions, one of them, wanted to do too much and it wasn't possible. So making sure that you've got a structure to the program, and I'm happy to share our program with your organization and have a session with the woman who built it and go through. She just actually did a survey checking in with all the mentees, but structure, attainable goals.
Awesome. I would love to connect with you further on that. I think that'd be super
Yeah.
helpful. Um, okay. What advice a teenage girl just starting to begin to figure out what she wants to do in life?
So this, I think as a teenage girl, you have to be open to a lot of things. And I personally don't think as a teenager you have to decide what you're going to do for the rest of your life when you're 15, 16, and 17. Sometimes I listen to, my nephews, and at an age of 16, 17, I want to do this. I'm like, you don't know what you necessarily want to do. So I think, be open, explore, figure out what your passion is, because you don't necessarily know. I can look back at what I was doing at that age, and I didn't have a clue what I wanted, but I had an open mind. You ask a lot of questions, but don't put yourself in a box and say at 15 or 16 this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. Open-minded, read, talk, ask questions.
Awesome. Um, the next one that got sent in is, have you ever had an experience when you were younger with people who told you that you couldn't be successful? And if you did, like, how did you handle that?
Depends how younger you mean, but you know At an early age, I didn't think, I mean, I was not particularly career minded. I started in this company and, it took off, but there's no question that through my career, I've had a series of managers. I might have been with the same company for a long time, but I've had a series of managers who are not so nice, who definitely did not necessarily appreciate my view. So I just stayed firm, worked hard, and plowed through. So I don't know if I answered the question. Sometimes I get distracted. I'm looking at people and, I'm sitting
No,
alone
that was
in this
perfect.
room.
Okay. How does your mission statement, well, could you tell us what your mission statement is, just for anyone who doesn't know?
So in terms of what our organization is all about, in its simplest terms is, we are in business to help people find jobs. So that is our mission. I don't know, that's not our formal mission statement. I don't think we rolled out a new formal mission statement, but our job as an organization is to help employers connect with great candidates. So, what we do is important in terms of connecting people with their jobs and their careers at various stages.
Awesome. And how does like doing that, like how does that affect your daily like corporate activities?
Affect my daily, the
Corporate,
corporate, your accent, I shouldn't talk, I've got a New York accent, you're a little new, definitely a little New England. How does that affect the corporate activities? I'm not sure. The corporate activities are built around solving client problems. Our offering and what we deliver to the market is built around solving client problems. So it is everything we do. Every, hire we make, every product we build, every solution we bring to the table is about fulfilling that mission, about helping complex organizations hire talent. So it is everything we do every day.
awesome. Going back to I'm sorry, we're like going back and forth here a little bit.
I'm ADD, so it's perfectly fine.
With the mentorship program that we were just talking about, what would you describe like a good mentor is? Like, what do you have to be a good mentor?
You have to listen, and you have to be able to identify an area of strength and an area of growth for your mentee, and then guide them along the way, not tell them what to do or tell someone they're right or wrong. It's listen and guide and not judge.
Awesome, thank you. Um, if anyone else has any more questions, by all means, feel free to ask, or you can send it to the group real quick. I'm kind of running low on my own questions, which is totally fine. Um, but I guess like the last one that I really had planned was if you could go back to when you were 15 years old, what would you tell yourself about your journey?
I would say get ready. Wow. Your journey ahead is fabulous. There is nothing you cannot do. I would tell my 15-year-old self to be confident and work hard and follow your dream, because you could get anything done. And you don't know what's ahead of you, but you work hard, you've got a good work ethic, and you're ambitious and you're honest. You can do anything you put in front of you.
Thank you. Um, thank you so much for spending time with us. Oh, someone just sent another question. Can you speak about managing up and down?
I don't manage up. Personally, I cannot stand anyone managing up. I think it is the worst trait you can have. I manage down. I've never managed up. I take care of the people that are doing the work every day. Whether it's an account executive or a vice president, you take care of that. You don't manage up. I have a board. I definitely don't manage up. Be honest, be direct, take care of the people that work for you, don't manage up. Just, I personally don't think it's a way to success. I run an organization with no politics, no infighting, no backstabbing, nice, honest, direct, take care of your colleagues, and no managing up.
I think that's really admirable because a lot of places like just going anywhere out today, like you see a lot of that. Um, and so that's really impressive that you can manage to keep up that environment and make sure that like it is such a transparent and open and honest place to work and be with your coworkers.
I had the luxury, or I had the education of working for a public company before we spun off. And I watched a lot, I saw a lot. And I decided at that point that the company I get to run is not going to be run that way. So open, honest, no politics, and I'm not naive, no politics, and don't manage up.
Awesome. Could you just explain a little bit what managing up versus down means for some of our younger girls?
So, when you manage up, you take care of the people that are more senior than yourself. It's what do you need to do to make sure that you're achieving for people above you and satisfying them, versus managing down is taking care of the people below you, your subordinates, the people that are doing the work every day. Managing up sometimes I think is telling people what they want to hear. you know, my manager, I want to keep them happy. So therefore I am going to tell them A, B, C, and D, versus, managing down and taking care of the people that are doing the work every day and listening.
Awesome. Other than the mentorship program, are there other ways that you encourage new hires to become more involved in the company?
We do, which is a little tricky now, but we do, we give every employee a day off every quarter to do a charity event. So every one of our locations once a quarter, and not everyone participates, but goes and does volunteer work for the day. So that was a great way to get new hires involved and engaged in the culture. We're doing that virtually now. So, we've done some pretty interesting things with, you know, childhood education and reading lessons. But that's one of the areas. New hires now are tough to kind of get people engaged in the culture when they've never met any of their colleagues. But, we've got an onboarding process and, get them engaged in the company. But definitely giving back to others. I think in the beginning of COVID, we did a fundraiser for food banks, and I told every employee, I asked everyone for $1, and I gave them my home address and said, I'll match every dollar. And I got piles of mail. People are like, we could just send it to you. I'm like, no, that's okay. But just, so for any employee that just started in the organization, it's just a good way to introduce. And, it's not always about company profits.
That's awesome. What's your favorite charity project that you've done over the years?
I've done a lot of work with JDRF. My nephew has juvenile diabetes. So it didn't happen obviously this year, but we do a walk over the Brooklyn Bridge. So we do, fundraisers, we get all the employees together and we walk over the Brooklyn Bridge with, 1,000 other New Yorkers. It's a pretty cool day.
Awesome. Do you have any resources that people can look into to work on their leadership skills?
Not off, we have resources in terms of information on our intranet and training. We have some customized internal training. I could look up to see what we have in terms of external resources, but off the tip of my tongue, I don't know what we have externally that I could share, but I'm happy to share whatever internal tools we have.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have a favorite book about leadership?
I have a Dare to Lead downstairs. I have not finished it, but I'm not a big leadership book reader. I watch a lot, I listen a lot, I read a lot of articles, but can't say I have a favorite leadership book. I have a pile downstairs though that I have to, finish up, but haven't done it. I usually do all my reading on airplanes and haven't been on one of those since March 1st, which I was in Amsterdam. Not so smart, but at least I got home safe.
That's that's true. Then I just got another question. Have you ever thought about involving yourself with IORG, which is us?
Oh, when Chris called me, I was very excited. Well, he sent me an email and then I'm like, sure, I would love to be involved. I have a lot of contacts within the HR community, so CHROs in different Fortune 500 companies, people head in charge of talent, talent acquisition within major companies. So I can think of a handful of clients that I could call and say, hey, would you speak to this group? And, I'm sure that I'd love to be involved.
Awesome. Thank you. We'll hold you to that.
I volunteered before and I never I always follow through with my commitments.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's kind of wrapping up the questions that I had prepared and I've been getting in throughout the night. If anybody else has any other questions, please, you can either take yourself off mute and just ask yourself, or you can send them in. But yeah, otherwise, thank you so much for meeting with us. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate the chance to talk to you this morning and then again tonight. I know your time is super valuable, so this has been a really awesome opportunity for New Hampshire Rainbow.
Well, happy to share. Thank you. All right, it was nice meeting everyone.
Thank you
Thank
very
you for
much.
sharing your time with us.
My pleasure. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.